Welcome everyone to Zoom in the Books. Today we have award-winning author Lisa McCombs. I'm going to hand the program over to Lisa. Take it away.
Hi everybody, my name is Lisa McCombs and I am an MS warrior. I was diagnosed in 2001, 6 months after the birth of my only child. As of February 26, 2020, nearly 1 million United States citizens were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is probably one of the biggest mysteries in medical content. We really don't know what causes it, and we don't know why it won't go away. We do know that geographically, people who live further from the equator have a higher risk of developing multiple sclerosis. I just want to read a little bit to you, or read my prologue to you from my book. I have MS. What's your superpower? I remember watching episodes of Batman on my family's small black and white television back in the 50s. I loved the animated pow, bang, zap that illustrated the emotion of action from Batman and Robin. The Batcave became my fantasy home, and who didn't want the blind loyalty of a protege like Robin? Later, I discovered Superman, and Clark Kent fast became my superhero. A relative orphan sent to Earth in order to live a human life with superhuman powers. As long as Superman steered clear of his nemesis, kryptonite, he could do anything. In dealing with multiple sclerosis, we need to be aware of our personal kryptonite and work hard to keep it at bay. I believe that common sense can be just about the most powerful weapon in our superpower arsenal. I've chosen common sense to be my partner in fighting all the ill effects of multiple sclerosis. But if we employ a daily dose of common sense, we can turn this monster into a superpower worth reckoning with. Warriors, you need to arm yourself with knowledge about your disease before you can fight it. And that's why I'm here today to talk to you about keeping knowledgeable, because you need to know about your disease. When I was diagnosed in 2001, I had no idea what multiple sclerosis was. It was an alphabet disease as far as I'm concerned, because of MS, MD, and I really didn't know what that meant. So the school teacher in me insisted that I research my disease, and that frightened me so badly. My mother insisted that I attend an MS support group here in town where we live, and because I couldn't drive at the time, she took me and insisted on joining me there, for which I was glad. She did offer a lot of moral support, and to this day she does. But that support group scared me to death. I saw individuals younger than myself sitting in wheelchairs and being fed by their companions. I saw individuals who used 2 different canes at the same time to walk. I was so scared. Freshly out of the hospital, both from having a baby and from an 11-day stay being diagnosed, I didn't want to have this disease. I didn't want to understand any more about it. So I just kind of shelved my resources for a while. And then a few years after that, a very good friend of mine who was basically, I call it her my little sister, even though there was no blood relationship. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis before I was, actually. But I got a call that she was in the hospital and not doing very well. When I went to see her, she was just a shell of the girl that I knew. She had lost lots and lots of weight. She could barely move her arms. She couldn't walk at all. And just a few days, I'm so glad that I did go see her, because just a few days later, Jamie passed. She did not die of MS. She died of complications associated with multiple sclerosis. That is the biggest myth that I want to stress here. You cannot die because you have multiple sclerosis. It is not a death sentence. But sometimes it can feel that way for sure. Until that point, well, let me back up a little bit. I had already written the book, I Have MS, What's Your Superpower? And I dedicated the book to her. She hadn't read it yet. And that makes me sad because I wrote it for her. She's the reason that I became vocal about my disease, about her disease, about our disease. So I wrote the book, and I think that it's helped some people. And if you're interested, I hope that you will acquire a copy of I Have MS, What's Your Superpower? You can get it on headlinebooks.com. You can contact me for your copy. But I think it's helped some people. I know it helped me to write it. It was like my therapy to write the book. According to healthline.com, multiple sclerosis is 2 to 3 times more common in women than it is in men, and I find that really interesting. 70% of women in the United States, as opposed to 30% of diagnosed patients in the United States, are women. Did I say that right? Does that make sense? Sorry. MS is not considered an inherited disease. And you may argue with me because we know a lot of people who have siblings or relatives who have MS. And I'm going to not be real professional here, but I'm going to chalk that up to living in West Virginia for me, because we're not close to the equator. And one of our biggest problems in this part of the country is that we don't get enough vitamin D. Vitamin D is the key here. So if you're not taking your vitamin D supplements, take them. Whether you have MS or not, take them. Sorry, I just lost my page. Some fun facts about MS. If you didn't know it, today is World MS Day. May 30th is always World MS Day, and there are all kinds of activities happening around the world for which you can support multiple sclerosis awareness. The month of March is MS Awareness Month in the United States. So we're out there. MS warriors are out there, and you can recognize us by the color orange. If you can see my shirt and my necklace, my orange MS ribbon. Why are we recognized by the color orange? Because it's a hot color, and multiple sclerosis is a hot disease. So our nerve endings are on fire, basically. The butterfly is a representative of multiple sclerosis because a butterfly and an MRI brain scan look very similar. So if you wondered about those two things, I think maybe I've cleared that up for you. Living with multiple sclerosis is a full-time job, folks. If you don't get a day off, you don't get a vacation. When you physically go on vacation, you take the monster, multiple sclerosis, with you. And you need to learn how to deal with that. So I'd like to give you a few helpful hints that I've learned along the way. And I would love to hear from any warriors out there on Facebook, or you can contact me on my email, LisaAnnetteMcCombs@yahoo.com. You can talk to me on Facebook. Just get a hold of me and talk to me, because no matter how long you have this disease, you continue to learn. Some of my biggest MS issues are incontinence. I didn't even know what that meant until I got it. One of the comments that I hear most often is, well, you don't look sick. That's because multiple sclerosis is an invisible disease. Unless you see me walking, you might not even know that anything's wrong with me. But I have what is called a drop foot, or what I affectionately call flop drop in my book. And a drop foot can be, it's very inconvenient. And it's exactly what it sounds like. the front part of my foot drops, so that I'm always stumbling over my toes. At first, I was using a cane to help me around, and that was kind of I offered a stigma that I didn't want to be attached with, but then students of mine actually painted a cane for me after I got out of the hospital, and they found out what was wrong with me, and it's a beautiful cane, and it's actually a piece of art, and that taught me to embrace the fact that I can customize my walking stick, and that's what I've done. I collect canes. And then just a few years ago, my physical therapist prescribed an AFO, and I call it my pink leg, and it helps me walk by manually holding up my toes so that I don't trip over them anymore. So there are ways to get around the difficulties of living with a disease like multiple sclerosis. Some things that might help you if you suffer from MS. Yoga is a wonderful stretching activity. Pilates, and walking. Of course, walking is a little difficult when you have a dropped foot, but I try to get some steps in every day. And stretch. You need to stretch every day, every day. And the biggest thing you need to pay attention to, other than that, is be positive. I know it's hard. I know it's very hard. It's frustrating. It's scary. And it's a full-time job. And not only does it affect you as the patient, it affects everybody around you. And unfortunately, folks, nobody's going to understand what you're going through unless that other person has MS. So it's a lonely thing, but it doesn't have to be. You can make it more positive. You can just look at the bright side and be grateful. There are a lot of medications out there for multiple sclerosis. When I was diagnosed, I was started out with a self-injection called beta-seron. It's one of the older MS medications. I had to learn how to give myself a shot every other day. And I was on beta-seron for 11 years. And finally, I just decided it just wasn't worth it to have all of these bruises all over me from sticking a needle in myself. So I was very, very excited when my neurologist prescribed one of the oral medications, Tecfidera. You probably saw some commercials on TV when it first came out, because it just looks so exciting to be able to walk out into a swimming pool and swim. It didn't help me do that. It made me very, very sick, but that was just me. So if you are prescribed Tecfidera, I hope it's successful for you. I left Tecfidera to go on another self-injection called Copaxone. And it worked pretty well, but the bruises from needle injections were a lot worse than beta-seron. So finally, my neurologist prescribed another oral medication called Gilenya. I've been on Gilenya for a little over a year. Unfortunately, the side effects are scary, but as with all prescription drugs, there are side effects, and I just keep my fingers crossed and just think positive every day and hope that it works. So none of these drugs will stop the progression of the disease, but they do block what is called exasperation. And exasperation is also known as an attack. I have not had an exasperation for several years, and I guess I'm going to attribute that to a combination of the exercise I do, the vitamins I take, and the oral medication. Once again, trying to be positive. So be positive. Let me read to you a little bit from my book, I Have MS, What's Your Superpower? I've already told you why I wrote the book and when I wrote the book. This is my story. Finally, the beginning of summer vacation. The day that every public school student and their teachers have looked forward to since mid-August. For me, this summer held an even more special ingredient. In 2 weeks, my newborn My newborn son would celebrate 6 months on this earth, and we had the entire summer to play, learn, and laugh, starting with the summer's mile-long walk to the public library. He would enjoy the stroller ride, and I could begin to document his academic beginnings. I stocked the stroller with bagged apple slices, yummy kitty cookies, bottled water, my library card, sunscreen, and a spare diaper. My walking routine had been traded in for feeding schedules and mommy duties lately. So I looked forward to this hike for more than one reason. My legs were getting lazy and my Reeboks were looking way too clean. I spread a thin layer of extra strength sunblock on baby's face, secured his new Old Navy ball cap, and lowered the stroller visor to ensure that harmful rays were filtered. My own sun hat was in place and sunglasses secured. We set out with the sun to our backs, and I made certain to comment on the sights of downtown Fairmont as we crossed traffic and entered the more historic portion of our small city. The morning was clear and traffic was light, so our journey was the perfect way to begin what promised to be the perfect summer sojourn from academia. I was a school teacher at the time. I just retired 5 years ago. An hour later, with a stroller full of colorful children's books for baby and 2 crime novels for me, I carefully tucked my now sleeping son back into his chariot and began the return walk home. The sun was a little higher, and its rays noticeably warmer. It felt good. I was on top of the world. Life couldn't get much better than this, I remember thinking, and wished for the upbeat time that I knew how to whistle. This just seemed like the perfect moment to let out a light-hearted whistle. I had the perfect child. This was the perfect morning. Very near a perfect library, the perfect distance away for the perfect morning stroll. And then, as with all perfect plans, the bottom fell out and all hell broke loose. 4 city blocks from home, my vision suddenly blurred and my right arm began to tingle in a strange, limp, falling asleep manner. For some reason, I could no longer fully lift my right foot, and my mouth felt like it was actually pulled down in what I imagined was a comic book grimace. The sun was really beating down on us by then, and there were no shady places to rest for a moment and try to collect myself. This was really, really weird. If it was just me, I could crawl home. I would fit right in with the street folks who vacated the empty shop door wells in the upper end of town. But it wasn't just me. I looked down at my little miracle and attempted to adjust the stroller visor. But my arms were becoming strangely useless as I decided to conserve my energy for crossing the highway. I'll have a drink, I thought. That's the ticket. I remember focusing on that water bottle with such an intensity that I had hoped to will it to rise up to me and rinse me in its refreshing content. But it didn't. Remember, my perfect morning, my perfect plan was no longer perfect. So any magical life-saving actions were safely resting in the stacks back in the fantasy section of the library. I remember staring out at the 4-lane, thankfully not polluted with traffic yet, and praying to God that I could safely push my son's stroller to the other side. My legs were so weak, and my right foot had to be practically dragged. At least the wheels on the stroller would help pull me up in the right direction. I stepped off the curb and plunged my son and myself into the middle of the highway, steeling myself to ignore the angry car horns that surprisingly didn't sound. Or maybe there were none. I really don't know. This portion of my return walk home has gone to the selective portion of my brain, for which I'm very grateful. I really don't want to know how we crossed that highway. It's just important that we did. To this day, I don't know exactly how I managed to cross the street to complete my journey over the uneven sidewalk to my own front porch. 1 concrete step up to the front walk and 2 porch steps to reach the front door elude me. I do remember sitting on the front step beside my sleeping baby, wondering how on earth I was going to move that stroller to the front door. I was terrified of the prospect of lifting my child in my numb arms and actually carrying him the distance the door. But by now I couldn't feel the fingers on my left hand, and my right arm hung uselessly at my side. Someone was watching over me that day. Of that, there's no question. I think I might have dozed there in the shade of my front yard pine tree, because the next memory I have is that of my son making small conversational noises from his stroller seat. Without even thinking, I reached for him and rose from my porch to carry him inside, away from the heat. It was as if my horrible walk home had never happened. I had to stretch my imagination to recall the frightening events of the afternoon, but I would not be convinced otherwise. And of course, as paranormal fate would have it, the lack of sensations returned as soon as I changed and fed my son. It wasn't as bad, but it was there, whatever it was. I knew that medical attention was necessary. The only physician I knew to contact was my OBGYN, who blessedly granted me an emergency visit. His advice was to go to the ER, straight to the ER. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. This was no postnatal event, but I could tell he had his suspicions. I got some flack from my then spouse, but I had a new reason to take care of myself. I hadn't planned to be a mother at the age of 40, nor had I any plans to contract some lethal disease. Upon registration into the hospital, I was prodded, x-rayed, CAT scanned, and MRI'd. Extensive tests ruled out a stroke, and there was no conclusive evidence of any other sensible condition. The entire time I spent in the hospital, my biggest concern was the welfare of my child. My mother was out of town, and I didn't want to worry my father. Being of an advanced age for a young mother, I didn't have many friends around who were free to help me out. I finally called a relatively close girlfriend, whose work allowed her a little more freedom than most people, and she agreed to hook up with my husband and lend a hand. They ended up married a few short years later. Until recently, I thought my son was in her care exclusively, until my brother and sister-in-law informed me their baby nephew had spent quality time in their house with hands while I was in the hospital. To this day, I'm still filling in the gaps. 11 days later, I returned home to continue my summer vacation. I relearned how to walk, how to feed myself, and enunciate words. I couldn't hold my child without fear of dropping him. On July 1st, 2001, I had a spinal tap and was officially diagnosed with relapsing, remitting multiple sclerosis. I was prescribed beta-seron. I learned how to self-inject, and I dealt with it. My son's favorite movie became my VHS instructional video on how to inject beta-seron. To this day, we laugh about it, and I really feared for a long time that I would be forced to convert this old VHS to a DVD for his 18th birthday. If he chooses a career in medicine, I can blame it on that video. I'll tell you right now that his 18th birthday has come and gone. He's 19 now, and he doesn't want to be a doctor. My real MS adventure began that summer. My first lesson was to find out what MS was and how long I had to live. Morbid? Yeah. Unrealistic? No. That was some time ago, and I'm still kicking, but the true definition of MS remains a mystery to me and will probably remain so until my final breath. I hope not. I hope that there's a cure soon. I hope that research and resources will allow the medical world to come up with something that gives us a cure for multiple sclerosis. I know there's a lot of work being done right now with stem cell therapy, and unfortunately, there is no such procedure in the United States. You have to go out of country. I know there's a lot of controversy over that procedure, but I'm looking forward to a future without multiple sclerosis. MS symptoms change not only hourly, but mentally. Every MS warrior is different. Our symptoms may be similar, but we're all different. There is no cut out, defined MS persona. There are different levels of MS. I have the remitting, relapsing. There's a progressive secondary. I'm grateful for where I am in my disease and where I have stayed for the past 19 years. I have not progressed much anyway, because symptoms change constantly. If I can give you any advice at all, especially you newly diagnosed warriors, take time to mentally plan every outing that you take. I don't think that I would be fibbing if I didn't address the issue of incontinence. I think we all suffer from that to a point. So make sure you know where the bathrooms are. Make sure that you kind of planned it out in your mind where you will be located on the venue. If you're in a shopping mall, plan out your trip in your mind. Know where, like I said, the bathrooms are, if there's a bench to sit on. Don't overexert yourself. We're not going to fall apart on the spot. I know that. And we don't want to be babies. I know that too. But you need to understand that living with multiple sclerosis is almost more of a convenience than an inconvenience, than anything else. If you think about it, apply for a handicap license for your car and use it. Don't abuse it, but use it. I know we all are very prideful people, but if you can get that help, that assistance, take it. If you can apply for disability, do it. You've already paid into the system. Read about the disease, research, talk to other warriors, join Facebook groups, and if you're so inclined, join a support group. I know they're very good for some people. I even started a support group several years ago through the National MS Society. It didn't quite fly in my location, but there are some very successful organizations out there and groups out there. You can message me for a list of reading material if you want to. I've read a lot of books about multiple sclerosis, whether the books were nonfiction, other people's journeys, or even diary entries. Because the more you read about it, the more you involve yourself in the research and the study, the more informed you'll be. And I think that's very, very important. Never be ashamed of your disease. You didn't cause it. There's nothing you could have done to stop it. It's just there. So let's make that proverbial lemonade, okay? Just be positive. That's my biggest message to you. You're going to find that there are a lot of annoying people out there, and you just have to brush it off, I guess. You just have to get up and brush it off. You fall down, you get back up. Always look for the positive side. There is so much study and research being done right now about MS medications. A lot of people turn to alternative treatment, which I have dabbled in a little bit too, essential oils, acupuncture. Definitely physical therapy is a wonderful route if you can afford it. Talk to your doctor about it. You can get a prescription for it. It's hard. It's a little bit painful, but you're being proactive when you do things like physical therapy. So don't forget that. Do that. I'm looking at my notes right now, and I think I've gone over just about everything. I did mention vitamin D. That's a big one. You need to take vitamin D. Take your supplements. Right now, I take Ampera twice a day. Ampera is the walking drug, and it's not really an MS medication, but it certainly helps with walking. I take Gilenya, my vitamin D, my daily vitamin, Baclofen for my drop foot, and an antidepressant. I think everybody of my age takes an antidepressant. Kathy's asked, do you speak to groups in schools? I love to talk to groups about multiple sclerosis. I didn't used to, but I just think people need to hear other people talk about it. I like to talk to church groups as well as MS groups. I speak at libraries, not only about MS, but about my young adult books too. I mentioned before that today is World MS Day, and I'm involved in a group right now on Facebook that is led by a fellow named David Lyons. Hi, David. David Lyons is a former bodybuilder. Well, I guess he still works out in the gym, but David was diagnosed with MS a few years ago, and he has spent a lot of hours working with MS warriors, physical fitness, and you can find him on Facebook. MS Fitness is the name of his page. Right now, he's involved in, for MS, World MS Day, a push-up challenge. So check him out, David Lyons. He's pretty inspirational. And that's what we need. We need inspiration. I have a new book coming out, I hope. If you like young adult fiction, that's my passion. I love to talk about MS, but I love to talk about young adult fiction. I taught school for 33 years. I was a reading teacher, reading and literature, creative writing. And my students helped me see the reality of my dream of becoming an author a few years ago when a group of 8th graders, an 8th grade class, dared me to publish the story that I was working on at the time. So I self-published my first 3 young adult books, and then my 4th young adult book I published with Headline Books under the direction of Kathy Teets. The name of that book is Bombs Bursting in Air. I have a new book that will be part of a series called The Church of Go that follows the same hometown atmosphere of Bombs Bursting in Air. The new book is titled Praise Petals. So hopefully that'll be publicized soon, and you can look at that. People, if you're interested in any of my books, you can find me on my website, ladywiththecane.com. I am on Facebook, Lisa A. McCombs. My email address is lisaanettmccombs@yahoo.com. And I answer all emails. I write to people. If you order a book from me, I cover the shipping, and I will autograph anything that you do order. So I'd love to hear from you. In the month of March, I write every day on my blog, Lady with Cane, and I spend a lot of time raising funds for MS awareness. So I hope to hear from you. Have a good day and stay safe out there. All my friends on Facebook, thank you for joining me today. I'm just humbled that you would do that. Stay safe. Stay home. Thank you.